Hi, I'm Ruth Molman from the Farmington Hills Historic District Commission, and I'm here to discuss baseball with the baseball commissioner of Farmington Baseball. The history of this is very interesting. They've had diamonds in Farmington Hills in Farmington for a long time. It goes all the way back to when we had a fairgrounds at the turn of the century. There was a baseball diamond there, and then there was the fairgrounds didn't last very long, and then there was a baseball diamond at Shiawassee Park, but they weren't organized baseball. They were just pickup games, apparently. The Nichols School, which is on 13 Mile in Farmington, used to have games with the similar little one-room school up in West Bloomfield. That's as close as I could find to any baseball, organized baseball, until the high schools came along, and then they were in competition. And I'm here with John Barber, who grew up in Farmington and is now in charge of baseball for the kids.
Yes.
Tell me about how you got into baseball.
Well, I started playing like in 1966. My parents lived right across from Our Lady of Sorrows, and I was 7 years old, and that's when T-ball started back then, and we used to play our games up at Our Lady of Sorrows, the T-ball division did. And then I ended up playing probably till I was 14. Most of our games were down in City Park or Shiawassee Park, and when you got older, the older leagues would play at the old fields that used to be on the east side of Farmington High. That was the Pony Division. And they played at Drake Park. Drake was Farmington's premier fields before they built Founders. They had lights there, and it was always neat that you would get a couple night games. I mean, being 14 years old and playing under the lights, you felt like a Major League Baseball player. But
Did you play in high school?
no, I didn't play in high school. I started work at the hospital, and actually I wasn't that good of a baseball player. I was more of an organizer type person, but it was funny. We've talked many times with people about it, and back then, the Little League in Farmington, they didn't start as early as they do now. We used to not start until like almost school got out. And you would play all summer, but the teams would be bigger to account for vacations and things like that. So my first game, I remember showing up, and the coach asked what position did I want to play, and I said pitcher. I was 9 years old at the time, and I must have walked the first 10, 12 kids. I couldn't throw a strike. I couldn't even reach the plate, and I was soon removed and put out into right field to play for the rest of the year. And then after that, I became a catcher because I wanted to get more involved with the game itself, and that was basically my career. I wasn't that good of a ball player. I had the heart of a ball player, but not the skills of a ball player. So
There's so much excitement with baseball now that the Tigers are doing well.
oh yeah, you can see the kids like in our little league right now. They get to pick the team names, and when the managers get together for their meetings to pick the names, it's like a random order. They snap up the Tigers like right away, especially in the younger leagues. And they get the Tiger hats and the shirts that say Tigers on them. So,
Oh, how exciting for them.
yes, it is.
How are they organized?
We have, we have a T-ball division, which is our 5 and 6 year olds, and then we have what we call machine pitch, 7 and 8. And then we just split this year, it's a new league, but the 9-year-olds are in their own league by themselves. And then the 10 and 11-year-olds play together. And then the 12-year-olds with some 11-year-olds play. And then the older leagues is 15, 14, and 13-year-olds play together. And then lastly, we have a 16U and a 18U. And we don't have enough kids to form a whole league of them, so there's what they call an intercity league, and they play the communities like Novi, Commerce, Walled Lake. They all have their older teams. Most of those kids are high school players. But we also have softball. We have girls softball, and they play 8-year-olds, 10-year-olds, and 13-year-olds.
Is the girls' softball new?
No, it's actually been around quite a while. It's not as big as the boys' baseball, but the competition is just as, not fierce, but just as fun to watch as. And they play, a lot of their games are out at Drake Park on the smaller fields, but they do play out at City Park on the lighted diamond, so.
Well, women can be very competitive, I think more so than men, actually.
Some of them can be. But it's fun to watch them, and we're hoping to expand that league also. Now, the younger girls do play in T-ball, and we do have some girls that play baseball. Not all of them are playing softball, but the majority of them do.
Yeah, I remember I had one daughter that was fantastic, but she got into tennis. So, what do? They compete with each other?
Yes, we almost all our leagues are all in-house. Everybody's like from Farmington. We have a lot of players that do come from outside of Farmington, you know, some Southfield, some Redfords, Livonias. In the younger age groups, they're usually grouped by friends or schools. Mm-hmm. And when they get older, they go into what we call a draft, where we try to balance the teams so they're more competitive. It's not like one team's way better than the other. Mm-hmm. But
do the parents get very involved in this?
Oh, yes. They get very involved, and even if they're not coaching or managing, they're watching the games and screaming along with everything else. They love to watch them play, and it's fun to see them there. We do have a lot of parents that manage or help within the league itself. Mm-hmm. Like every team will have a manager usually and 2 coaches, 2 official coaches. Mm-hmm. But there's always parents on the field helping out, and it's fun to watch them.
It's such a thrill to watch these children do these things and develop.
Well, what's interesting is I've had a son that's already gone through the program. He's 15 now, but what's fun is to watch them grow. Like you see them at 5 years old, you see them at 8, and each step of the way that you see them grow and get bigger. And what's really neat right now is at Farmington High, there's a group of 6 kids that played, not all at Farmington, there's at some other schools too, but they all played together on my team in 10U, the Orioles. And see these kids now with mustaches and driving cars and, you know, just how good they've gotten. It's fun to watch them grow up.
Now, what sort of a league do the high schools have?
Well, the high schools, Farmington High has a freshman team. They're the only school of the Farmington schools that has a freshman team. It's actually a club, I think, where the parents pay for them to play. But they all have a JV and varsity, and they're in the Oakland Activities Division, I think it is, where they play like Rochester, Birmingham, Bloomfield Hills. And their season usually ends by the beginning of June. Mm-hmm. And that's why like our older kids can't play any of our league until the high school ends per the Michigan high school requirements. So the older leagues, they start right after the high school season ends. Mm-hmm. So
it must be very interesting growing up in Farmington. You grew up here, and
just to see the fields they use in remembering like going down to City Park to play as a kid. I mean, those diamonds that I played on back in the 60s and early 70s, they're still playing on today. I mean, if you look down at Shiawassee Park, there's only one field that's not there. It used to sit over by the river, and it wasn't actually a diamond. It had little dugout holes where the bases were, you know, just the dirt. And it would back up to one of the other fields, and you'd have balls flying from field to field. And it sat right next to the creek there, and a lot of the times the balls would go into the river. But one thing back in the early 70s, I must have been, I don't know, 10 or 12. Farmington used to play for the state title. Actually, 3 straight years they played Alpena. And I think we won one, I think we lost twice. My brother helped coach on that team. And we had some very talented athletes back then: Randy Meyer, Rick Milheiser, Tom Harmon. And there was a kid named Dick Radix, whose dad was on the Boston Red Sox.
Oh, wow.
And those kids, the core of them for about 3 years, Danny Jameson, they went to the state title when we were affiliated with Pony Baseball. I mean, it was really big back then. I imagine we probably had over 1,000, 1,100 kids back then.
Wow.
So,
Wonderful to have a sport like that. They become so committed once they start.
well, in baseball, either you love the game or, you stay with it. I mean, a lot of parents grew up with baseball. Baseball's losing a little bit of the popularity it once had because it is a slower game. There's no time limit on it like other sports like football or hockey or that. But there's still a lot of people that still love playing baseball.
Basketball was pretty big in Farmington also.
Yes, it was.
Do your kids play more than one sport?
No, I only have the one son, Michael. He played baseball till he was about 12. He played soccer a couple years. He never really loved baseball as much as I did. He could have been an outstanding player if he really was committed to it, but he played, he had fun, and I basically told him after he turned 12 that if he did tournament team, which in the summertime after our season ends, we form what we call tournament teams, and we take like an all-star team from the league, and we sign up for tournaments like at Chelsea or North Branch, and you go out there and you play probably 5 or 6 games in a weekend against other cities. And he did it the one year that I asked of him, and he had a blast doing it, but baseball isn't his game itself. The community is a big baseball family. I mean, you've seen many kids go through the whole program, and then their brothers and their sisters come through too. Like my brother, my brother played before I did even.
Oh.
And he played for Our Lady of Sorrows too. He was a good baseball player.
How about your sisters? Did they get into it?
No, they were. And back then, softball wasn't like it is today. I mean, you don't see much of it. The softball's gotten big over the years with the girls, and like you turn on the sports channels now and you see the college teams playing all around in the high school. One thing with the girls' programs is there's a lot of what they call travel teams, where they're more a specialized team where they play together and they play other communities and stuff. Not as much, what we play is we call house baseball, where it's just for the kids to have fun.
Have you had any stars come up in either college ball or professional ball?
Oh yeah, I was talking about that team back in the 70s. There was a kid on that team named Randy Meyer. He went to Power Junior High and Farmington High, and he ended up going to Central, and I heard he played in like the Seattle Mariners organization. I don't know if he ever made the pros per se, but he was one step away from the pros. And then there's a kid I just heard about this year named Fisher. I think it might be Jeff Fisher, that did play for the Colorado Rockies, that came up through the program. There's been some good talented players in this league. There's a couple other kids right now that have come out of Farmington High that are playing college ball, like down in Dayton. I remember reading this year about a kid that went to the University of Dayton that just set the strikeout record down there. And there's a couple others that have gone to Central, and there's been a lot of kids that have played in this organization that are good ball players.
Your league runs from what time to what time?
Well, it's funny, a lot of people don't realize how much behind the scenes stuff there are. But we start our sign-ups in January. It ends in mid-February. And then from there, the board, all the people that work for me on there, are scrambling to get things like uniforms, equipment, the drafts, and a lot of that stuff happens February and March. And then the kids start practicing in April. Of course, if the weather's nice. We know we've had a decent spring this year. And then they have their first games that first week in May. And our traditional opening day is May 5th. Or, I'm sorry, the first Saturday in May. This year it's May 5th. And we have a parade that they start at the police station and they march down the hill down to Shiawassee Park. Seeing all the kids in their colors and their uniforms. And it's basically for the younger leagues. I would say, the T-ballers, the 8Us, the 9Us, those are our biggest leagues. And the girls, of course. And you see just tons of teams in different colors. And we encourage the kids to make floats or to do something like that's related to the team. Now the pirates are always big because kids will take wagons and build little pirate ships, or they'll all have eye patches on and pirate hats and swords as their baseball bats, or Indians, things like that. They have banners, and they march. They cross the street there, and they come down that little angled street behind Masonic Temple, and the city blocks off Farmington Road, and then they come down Shiawassee, and then we meet down in the park, and Paws is there from the Tigers, their mascot. They have a DJ. We give out prizes for spirit, for floats, and then we have like a traditional first pitch where we pull a kid out to throw out the first ball. And this year it's my T-ball director's son who's really excited. He's not in T-ball, he's in 9U, but he's really excited to be the one that's doing it. I actually selected him at the last board meeting. And it's just fun. And then you look out on the diamond and you just see the colors. It's a great thing.
All the different colors of the uniforms.
And then the following week is what we have our picture day. And I had some pictures that I brought in of showing the team pictures where they meet over, Focal Point does it in Farmington. We meet over at Power Elementary, and the teams have set times to come in. And they shuffle through probably 66, 70 teams, in a 3-hour time frame. I mean, they have about 5 or 6 stations set up, and these teams are just coming in, getting their shots. They take individual shots of all the kids, and the packet goes out to the parents, whether they want to buy them or not. It's up to them, but.
Very exciting thing, a very exciting sport for them.
Yeah, it is. We have like a lot of like events like that all season long. Pitcher day, and then we have clinics on Sundays to get the teams ready for the tournaments. And then the playoffs start. Every league has a playoff except for T-ball. They're just a little bit too young for the competitive stuff, but we start our playoffs in June, and the girls finish before the boys, but all their final games are down on City Park 2 or Shiawassee Park 2. This is Diamond with the Lights, and it's something to behold. I mean, it starts at midweek, and then they have their finals on Saturday. And like last year, our girls game, the 13U, it went on for like 3 hours. I mean, it was just a battle. And then the boys start the next week with their playoffs. And last year we had 2 really good championship games in our 12U and our 14U division, where one of them went to extra innings. And I mean, you could hear a pin drop near the end of that game when the kid would go out on the mound and throw. I mean, it was exciting.
It sounds like it's very exciting.
Oh, it was something to see.
The people that support the teams, they're all volunteers?
Yes. The managers and the coaches, like I say, are mostly parents or dads. We also run an umpire program. A lot of the kids besides playing, do umpire. And they get paid per game on the games they do. They usually work, the league's like 2 or 3 years younger than their age group. So like a 12-year-old would do an 8-year-old game. And we have some very good coordinators. I have a very good umpire director, and she has some good coordinators under them. And at the same time we're doing our practicing, they're doing their training, and they get their equipment, and they get their schedule, and the kids get games. It's like a first job for a lot of these kids. And it's funny because we do have to tell the managers a lot of times that you have to remember these are kids. They're not professional umpires, and they make mistakes, and learn to live with it. So
It would be pretty bad if they pick on these little umpires.
we've had some instances, not not fighting or anything like that, but there's been comments thrown at them, and every time I see something like that, I shut it down right away. I basically tell the parents that, would you want your son to be having some man talk to him or whatever? But and then you mentioned like the volunteers. We have a board. South Farmington has a board, and there's 25 people on the board. I mean, ranging from positions from IT or fields or uniforms, equipment. We have a parade director. We have a picture day coordinator. And then every league has a director. And then we have a baseball and a softball commissioner. I was the baseball commissioner for the last 4 years. Now I became the president this last year, but it's a very time-consuming job. You have to love the game to want to do it. So,
Who's the commissioner this year?
it's a fellow named Dustin Goshorn. He worked with me last year. He was the assistant baseball commissioner, and he became commissioner this year. And he's doing a very good job. He's starting to see, a lot of the work that goes on with it. I mean, there's things every night that you have to deal with, and it's just nonstop.
Now, could you tell me how the cities of Farmington and Farmington Hills help to support the baseball?
Actually, they help us out a lot. The cities give us first choice on use of diamonds before other outside organizations may use it, and they are responsible for dragging the fields, for lining the fields for us. And it's not just like the city park itself, like all the elementary schools that we play at, like Beachview, Gill, Lanigan, the old Flanders site where the school is, we still use the diamonds there. And they work very, very well with us. Actually, our fields director works for the city of Farmington Hills, and he has a good rapport with the, I don't know what her title is, but she's the one that takes all our fields requests. Mm-hmm. And we've been working with them. We have a very good working relationship with them. And in this last year, actually, we put cement down in City Park on 3 of the diamonds where the dugouts are. Mm-hmm. So the kids wouldn't be standing in mud puddles when it rains. Mm-hmm. And they had no problem with any of that for us doing like some maintenance work and that. But they help us out a lot with the fields. And there's a lot of communities out there that charge their organizations to use their fields. We've been very blessed that, the city realizes how valuable the Little League is for the town itself. And like I say, we've had a very good relationship with them.
Well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming and telling us about the Little League. Let's see, that isn't the right word, is it?
Actually, it is. We just, this year, we became affiliated with Little League International. We've been an independent for like the last 20 years, but we are now known as South Farmington Baseball Little League. So we are a Little League program.
Our Little League, it's wonderful.
Yes,
wonderful
it is.
to do this for the children, and thank you so much for coming and telling us about it.
Thank you for inviting me.